webinar. We have 78 people confirmed today. We're coming off of our webinar from 2 weeks ago. We're doing two a month. We had 125 on our last presentation. And I'm really excited about today because our speaker today is someone who is coming on his 3-year anniversary for doing presentations with us, Mark Ainley. And just before we get into Mark and I do an introduction for him, just want to keep you guys posted that we are just still doing 2 webinars a month. They're posted on our site at chaseoffice.ca in the events section. The next one coming up is a CEU course called Design for Health, Creating a Happy and Healthy Campus. 2 of the presentations that we're doing in February are HSW certified. So if any designers are out there, that is a little bit more of a difficult credit to get. Both of them in February will be HSW certified. We will be recording today's event, so if you have to drop off early or you want to reference it, just you can send us a request to send you a link to the recording. Any questions that you have, just please put down into the comment section. I'll be putting in a website, menti.com, and a code that you can reference to be part of today's presentation and give feedback, because Mark will be asking questions and getting feedback from people. Very simple questions, very easy to participate. It's a lot of fun. Today's presentation will be about 45 minutes. We'll leave 15 minutes for questions at the end. And off to my friend Mark. Mark runs the consulting firm for Sense of Space and is an internationally recognized contemporary Feng Shui consultant with 20 years of experience in the field. Known for his common sense approach, he has worked worldwide with clients from San Francisco and Tokyo to Qatar and Australia on properties ranging from condos, family businesses, to spacious homes and commercial settings. Mark has been widely published in the international press, including features in the prestigious Hong Kong Home Journal and Elite Homes magazine, as well as in various publications from Norway to Japan. He's an expert presenter of engaging seminars and training programs. And as I said, we're entering our 3rd year with him. We hope Mark will inspire you today with a new way of appreciating the impact your environment has on both your inner and outer health. Thank you. We'll pass it over to Mark.
Great. Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. And I know you have lots of different ways that you can spend your lunchtime and your time in front of the screen. And so I appreciate that you're devoting this hour to what we have here. And I hope it's going to be really useful to you. So just to clarify, so some of you might not have taken any Feng Shui seminars with me before. I know Feng Shui has a mixed reputation. I really want to stress that the way that I'm approaching this is it's like just another level of mindfulness of how it is that you relate to your environment, how your environment's an extension of who you are, and how there's this dynamic dance between you and the space that you're in. And since we are in the business of working with spaces, working with environments, what I'm hoping that you'll be able to get from today is just an extra little aha or some inspiration or some insight or a new perspective for what it is that you already do, the toolkit that you've already been using and that you've got at your disposal to maybe experiment a little bit, look at things a bit of, in a bit of a different way. And also to remember yourself, because when we're busy designing spaces for others and serving others and helping others, we sometimes put ourselves on the back burner. And with everybody working at home, or a lot of people working at home right now, at least part of the time, making sure that your home environment is supporting you is going to help you with your work and, of course, with your life as well. So I'm going to switch over to the presentation now. Any questions, if you have throughout, if you want to type them in the comments in the chat window, that's awesome. And I'll get to them probably after the presentation. So I'm just going to switch into sharing the screen here. And go. Okay, can I get some thumbs up? Everybody able to see what it is that we're looking at? Okay, great. Yeah. So sign language is also great as well. So thumbs up, yay, nay, not so sure. Okay, there's also, this is a yes, this is a no, this is a maybe. Okay, so that can always work also. You should see at the top, there's the code that you can enter on your phone. So if you're not busy live tweeting the event and so on, if you just go to your web browser at menti.com enter that code, and you're going to be able to participate. And this is going to be fantastic because it'll help me be able to design perhaps a couple of more insights specifically for you in the moment, and to address something that might be really important to you or to others. So if you just enter 7641934, I'm doing the same thing because I plan on participating in my own presentation. And I didn't do it right, so that's kind of fun. 76419. There we go. All right. So Feng Shui for inner and outer health. So we came up with this topic because, you know, health has been on everyone's mind because, you know, what have we been up to for the last year, right? But we tend to focus on physical health a lot. And our culture is starting to focus on other elements, right? And today is, in fact, Bell's Let's Talk Mental Health Day. So we unknowingly timed this very, very well. And that's kind of the way Feng Shui works a lot of the time, right? Things just kind of align. So we're going to be exploring all these different arenas, all these different ways that we can look at health and what it really is, and then ways that your environment can support that. And some of these are just little tweaks that you can do that are going to make a difference. And this is what's important to recognize is a small change can make a huge difference. Right? And if you think about, this is scientific, if you think about a mathematical equation, you change one number in an equation, the value of the whole equation is different. And this is the same thing in any space you're working with. You know, you put that one plant there, that one flower there, or that one supportive image somewhere, and that changes everything. And it might not seem like a lot, but it really is. And so, you know, really giving yourself, you know, treating yourself well, to being willing to explore what it is that you can do for yourself in your own space. And this might give you some ideas about how you can support others in the work that you're doing. So let's take a look at what does this have to do with health, right? What does our home have to do with health and our spaces? Well, James Clear, whose book, Atomic Habits, I have been on a soapbox screaming about for the last 2 years since he released it, states, the environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior, which is pretty amazing. And there's another one that I put yesterday on my Instagram page, that your willpower is actually no match for your environment, something along those lines. So you have to, if your environment's not supporting what it is that you want, it's going to be a lot harder for you to accomplish that. So when it comes to health, physical and inner, you need a space that's going to support that. It's going to make it possible for you to engage in the behaviors and to have the attitude and so on that will support that. So let's look then at, this is what we're going to look at today. We're going to define, we're going to look at the term health, and sort of see what is it, how is it that we perceive health, inner and outer, how we can use nature, both real and in images, to support your innate well-being, how art can support your inner and outer state of being and how it is that you express yourself in your life. The 5 elements, really big thing in Feng Shui. We're just going to be dabbling in this. We're just sort of dipping our toe into the water just so that you can have a little bit of the lingo and see a little bit of how you can look at that. And then 7 kinds of rest. This is a new thing that I stumbled across on Ted's website recently. And again, we're just going to dabble in this, but I think it's fascinating insight for how it is we can support ourselves and have our environments support us as well. So if you go to your web browser at menti.com that you should have open, you can enter up to 3 words because I'm really generous like that. What comes to mind when you think of health? What is it? Is it vitality, energy? Like, what is it about when you think health? What's the first thing that comes to mind? Ooh, look at that. Wow. Well, I love seeing energy be right there in big letters in the center. That's pretty awesome. Mental well-being, meditation, wealth, success. Look at that. Cool. Fascinating little interactive dance, isn't it? Sleep, exercise, happiness is big too. Balance, happiness, energy. All right. Cool. And they're all accurate, right? These are all elements. They're all different flavors, just like, you know, different fingers from the same hand. These are all different expressions of a certain state of integration and well-being. Awesome. Great. Thanks for sharing all of your answers there. You know, some of the things that we see when we look in magazines, you know, diet, of course, is healthy. We imagine that, you know, physical exercise in a more robust manner tends to be one that people really go for to be healthy. Of course, you know, I live in Vancouver, I'm on the West Coast, so yoga is a big deal. So that kind of health as well, which, you know, we understand is, you know, we somehow imagine then we're, you know, all of a sudden we're going to be levitating and we're going to be glowing on the inside with, you know, radiant perfection. But health is more than just the body. And of course, what you do for the body does impact you inside. And our culture is fortunately focusing on mental health. And I'd actually invite us to consider a broader and I think more inclusive term that I think is more general, but also more precise. And that's inner health. Because I think mental relates really to just your thoughts and ideas, but what about your emotions? And how do your emotions and your thoughts interact? And quite often it's the relationship between one and the other that can create some stresses and challenges. And then those stresses play out in the body, they play out in behaviors and so on and so forth. So this is why we came up with the name, all right, as a team with Chase Technion and myself. You know, we thought, okay, inner and outer health. This is really looking at actually where there is no inner, there is no outer. It is just one seamless expression of self, and they're all related. So, and I'm not disregarding, you know, any, of course, mental health sort of exploration and so on. Of course, it's very, very important. But I think looking at the inner, looking at the emotional, looking at the overall state of being, I think is looking at everything contextually, I think is really important. So for you, what aspects of your health are a priority for you right now? And it might be something like sleep or exercise or diet or whatever, or it might be one of those, you know, mental, emotional or anything like that, stress or anything. What is it that is a priority for you? Stress management, stress, great. Getting outside more, yeah. Living in the present, movement, walking, loving yourself, awesome. Mm-hmm. Well, look at those big three, the big three in the middle, right? Diet, sleep, and exercise. And all the other ones, physical mobility, stress. Stress is there, a lot of different expressions of stress. Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. I think the 7 kinds of rest that we're going to look at towards the end of the presentation, I think that's going to be really, really helpful when it comes to the stress as well as the mobility and so on. So great. Really grateful for all these awesome answers. Thank you, everyone. Okay, and so nature. We're going to be looking at actual elements, physical representations of nature in your space, as well as artwork. And the reason why this is going to be helpful is nature doesn't doubt itself. A bird doesn't doubt whether it should sing, it just does. The sun shines, unless the cloud comes in Vancouver, which as we know happens a lot, but the clouds just do what they do. The sun's still there. The sun's still shining. So as conditions change, nature just does what it does. It's adaptable. And having actual physical natural objects in your space, as well as images of nature, sends you a message, helps you get in touch with your natural element. The fact of the matter is we come from nature. Our bodies do not have straight lines. And if you look at this landscape, there's no straight lines anywhere. But we live in physical environments that have straight lines, and that keeps us on edge. And we can feel like we're stuck in a corner. And all of these other linear-minded, stress-related conditions. And so nature, I think, is just one of the biggest, most important things that you can do to balance your environment and balance yourself. So, you know, of course, this is something that we often think about, right? Eating healthy food, you know, fruit, vegetables, all of that. flowers. Now just look at the color again, you know, like it's just expressing itself. It's not doubting it, right? It's just, it does what it does. So having this kind of thing is helpful. Dining areas as well. And especially if you're working at your dining table, please put your computer away and, you know, use your dining table as a dining table. But having some flowers there, I think, is a fantastic way for you to slow down and to really appreciate beauty, appreciate the natural and the biological process that you're engaged in as you're eating. Having plants somewhere on display in the home. Now, again, you don't have to turn your place into a terrarium and have, you know, have it be a jungle. Sometimes just one plant is fine. So don't go overboard. And if you have a black thumb and tend to, you know, end up with a plant graveyard at home, artificial plants actually are okay. I know people will say in Feng Shui you shouldn't. I disagree. If it looks real, it's fine. Okay. For example, this one is artificial. So, you know, you have this in a bathroom and it actually brings a lot of life. It looks pretty realistic. The one thing you should watch out about, because you do need to dust them, because that's where, you know, it's not going to sort of speak to robustness and health. And if you have red silk flowers and you wash them in the bathtub, it might look like a murder scene. That happened to me once before, and I thought, okay, you know, should probably, you know, I made sure not to take a photograph of that because it looked pretty hardcore. So yeah, but wash them or dust them or shake them out or do whatever. And you should do that with your real plants as well. And this is actually a pretty cool Feng Shui hint that I heard from another consultant. If you're feeling constrained and you're feeling pressure and you can't really express yourself, if you have plants, wash the leaves, like get the dust and really freshen them, because it can be a little bit like, you know, you've got some energy that's holding you in and it's, you know, a little bit tight around you energetically and around your body. And doing that to the plants is like doing that a little bit to yourself. Okay. At your workstation, why not? As long as you're not going to be getting water on your electronics. Hey, Tracy's a good student. She knows what to do. Perfect. So as long as you're not, you know, as long as it's not going to be a risk, and as long as it doesn't crowd the table, right? If it makes the space not workable, then it's not really great, right? I think Feng Shui needs to be functional. But the function for me is beyond just the task orientation. I think functional includes the mental, emotional, and overall. But anything that inhibits that, not so great. So plants, I have one in the corner of my desk as well. I think it's just looks great, doesn't it? And here as well. Now, I've been talking a lot about plants and we see that plant there, but also in the background, you can see the salt crystal lamp. That's another expression of nature. So it doesn't have to just be plants. Whatever it is that you can have in your environment that expresses naturally, that's a product of nature, that's not fully artificial, refined, man-made, I think is going to support that innate expression as well. So, you know, sometimes I move around and if I go to the dining table, I'll light candles. And that just changes the atmosphere completely, right? Flames as well. That's an expression of nature and it really triggers, it also has a very calming influence. The people who teach earthquake preparedness and teach how to put your kit together suggest that you have tea lights. And they said, you know, flashlights are often useless unless you have a headlamp because your hands are going to be busy. But they do suggest tea lights because they're warming and they're calming. Now, if earthquake preparedness people are tuned in to the calming effect of tea lights, I think that the rest of us could really consider that, right? So even having that by your desk could be really nice, right? As long as you're not setting your paperwork on fire, right? Although some of us might be really tempted at times. Where did those financial reports go? Right, so that's not quite what it means to be in the red. But so candles, that can work really well. Water as well, right? Again, not dousing your computer and so on, but any of those natural elements, anything natural that's physically from nature in your space works great. And if you don't have the space, if you don't have the money, the art, right? Neurologically, when you're looking at something, you know, we have more brain power devoted to the sense of sight than to any other sense. And so as much as having something tangible and physical is another dimension for the body, having the visual there is also really, really strong. And that's something we're going to look at in the next section. Just imagine how that wall would look if there was nothing on it, and how different it looks, having that representation of nature there and the movement of the water that you can see. So what expressions of nature do you have in your home right now? Could be art, could be something physical. All right, lots of plants. Right on, folks. Many plants, many plants. Floral paintings, flowers, fake plant, still great. Stained glass, really nice. Great way to bring in color and texture and aliveness. Views of mountains, awesome. Even when you have natural views outside, if you could do something inside to bridge it, then you sort of feel more of that connectivity to the nature outside. So you have something on the wall that maybe matches and goes well. And it's not just like, oh, all the nice stuff's out there. All that nice stuff out there gets bridged into your home as well. So that can be really fantastic way to work. Those plants are the constant. Right on, folks. I mean, hey, you guys know the benefits of this. So that's awesome. Hummingbird feeders, nice. Perfect. All right. Nice one, folks. So let's continue with art then. So as I said, what you see, right, is like the bulk of brain power in terms of your senses. But this is really the basis of Feng Shui, that what you see impacts how you be. And I'm using that grammatically in that way because it's how are you in your state of being, as well as what is it that you do. So it's really your overall beingness is super impacted by what it is that you look at. We're going to look at, you know, the whole relationship with advertising. I'll just bring this up now, and the image is coming up in a second. I'll actually jump ahead and then we'll jump back. You know, you think about advertising, and you look at a commercial for how many seconds, and think about how much they charge for that at the Super Bowl, right, for airtime. And think about how long you look at a print advertisement, right? You're talking seconds, and they're spending a fortune to have access to your eyes, which is really just access to your brain, which then is access to you. And it's meant to change how it is that you think and feel and behave. So if they're willing to spend that much money for a matter of seconds access, what's the value of what you look at for weeks, months, and years? The same principles apply whether you're looking at something on the wall, if you're looking at something out the window, if you're looking, whatever it is that goes through your eyes. It's not just because it's magically on TV or in a magazine that it impacts you. We are extremely impressionable. And advertisements specialize in subliminal advertising. There's all kinds of messaging, how they use the colors, how they use positioning, how they layer things. And in a sense, this is what I do with Feng Shui. I'm I could make a fortune in advertising, but I have a moral compass. And what I like to do is help people reverse engineer their space to support their mindset, so that the advertising, what it is that you're looking at, is sending you the right messages, as opposed to perhaps some unintended consequences. And we're going to be taking a look at some of that. So right now, if you would answer, yeah, there we go. It looks like we're already answering. What do you have? What's the percentage of art that you've got in your space? Is it blank walls everywhere, or it looks like an art gallery in here? my place. Welcome to the Louvre. It's kind of on the high side. 6.3, pretty high. That's good. Right, 6.1 average. Okay, a couple of you on the lower side. Get to work, JJ. All right, and good. As we can see, Tracy's got heaps behind her, so that's good. Really colorful. She's hopefully high up on everybody's grid over there as a model with her artwork. Awesome. Okay, pretty good, right? And you don't need to fill up every space, but what it is that you look at, if you have less, what you have counts more, right? Because there's less distraction and it has more impact. So it is really important then to choose what it is that you're looking at because of this advertising principle. So as I said, nature works because, you know, nature has no agenda. It does have a message, and there is subliminal advertising there as well. And when we start dabbling with the 5 elements shortly, you'll get a little bit of a taste of some of that, but that's a very rich topic. But one of the things that people tend to do a lot is, we have a lot of man-made stuff. So, nature is one thing, but then of course we don't want just nature. I don't want your whole home to be just, like an ode to the outdoors necessarily. So I love this modern art, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. I think there's a lot that's going on here. Their yin-yang balance, element balance, and this is phenomenal. So there's a lot that we can get from this as well. The rocket, there's that, or it looks, it's like half a rocket, half a building. I mean, that's just talking about, reaching new heights and so on. Same with the mountain peaks, which then are reflected in the, the objects in front. It's absolutely brilliant display. This has become more and more a thing where people are choosing to impact their mindset through wordy art. And this is something that I don't really recommend. Like if you take a look at the words, again, there can be unintended messages. You will be okay. Basic message is, I am not okay now. And eventually that future will come. And you have no choice. Not exactly the message we want to hear, is it? Right? So a lot of these expressions can inspire us in the moment, but we're not aware of the long-term impact of them, right? Everything is going to be all right, but it's not now, is kind of what it says. And it doesn't mean everything's perfect now when you're in a difficult state, but then you don't want these mixed messages, and it really doesn't work. I had a client once who had opposite her bed was another expression I've seen a lot of. Always remember that something wonderful is about to happen. And I was like, yeah, something wonderful is always about to happen, and it never does. And she said, yeah, that's actually kind of what it's been like. So I took that one down. This is actually my feelings about this good vibes only thing that's been going around a lot. I had a friend who had this up on her wall, and a mutual friend of mine looked at it because he knows I'm into this thing, said, yeah, it's a really good way to teach her kids to suppress their emotions, isn't it? It's not what we expect. But if you think good vibes only, you're not letting yourself have an authentic expression, an authentic experience. That's a great goal. But the only, like if it said good vibes, that's very different than if it says good vibes only. Because you cut yourself off from an authentic experience, and hasn't everybody been able to get something really beneficial and make an important life change from something that in the moment maybe didn't seem so great? So you start to limit that. And this is when we talk about that inner health, mental health, emotional health, and that whole story. Needing things to be good vibes only, I think doesn't work. So I'm really cautious about using word-based art in this way in the home. A quote is very different, right? This just says one small positive thought in the morning can change your whole day. That's just a statement. So that is different. I still don't suggest too many words, but if you're using a statement, you're using a quote, this hello gorgeous, maybe like a boss for me is like saying that you're not a boss. Right? So again, there's that, I think, unintended message that can be there. So this is actually in MySpace. And so the words that I've got there, there's a Gutenberg Bible page. You know, I ripped it out when I went to Germany. I went to the printing press and they sell pages from that. And for me, that represents knowledge that was once in the hands of the few coming into the public and being available, which is pretty much what I do with Feng Shui. Then the other one is a quote, which was I commissioned a piece from my favorite calligrapher in New York, and he sent this as a second one because he knew I was into music. You know, we are the music makers and we are the dreamer of dreams. I mean, that's just an expression. That's a quote. And that's different than saying, you should feel this way, right? So a quote that inspires is very different than a directive. Okay, so if you want to really change your mood, if the art communicates a sense, like here, there's beauty and there's growth and there's still order. So it's not wild, it's wild, but it's also contained and it's also controlled. And so there can be something that really works, and there's a wide horizon, there's depth, there's expansion. All of those qualities are present. When we say a picture speaks 1,000 words, you know, it's something to remember. And look at that. In terms of being able to stand, you know, even if you're on your own, you can stand and you can appreciate that expansiveness. And there's that blend of elements, and there's earth and sky and water in between. So all of these communicate something. Even hard as stone still has flexibility, still adaptable, changing with the light. So, you know, around your workspace, again, you can choose a whole variety of them. Now, this one, you know, there's a couple of great things. It looks to me like she's probably places a high priority on peacemaking, you know, with a little dove, peaceful dove right next to her, although she's not looking entirely thrilled, if that's a representation of who she is. And the little mirror at the same level that's not big enough for me, that's, you know, probably her self-image, probably constraining a little too much. But she's choosing, right, what it is that expresses her, what it is that inspires her in the moment, and that's great. So just being aware that what it is that you have is going to be programming you, is going to be impacting how it is that you think. Consider how supportive of your ideal mindset is your artwork right now. What do you think? Do you think it's sending you the right message? Is it communicating the right thing? Okay. What is it that you think? So on a scale of uh-oh to super duper awesome, what do you say? Pretty good. Right, and we might not have thought about this before, right? Because we can often just choose things because aesthetically I like it. That's great. And it can go deeper than the aesthetics, right? If we choose something that's aesthetic and it also, and we're really mindful of how it is that it inspires us as opposed to just being beautiful, that's awesome. Fantastic, high score, above 7. Well done, folks. All righty, moving right along, the 5 elements. Now, I'll warn you that when I teach Feng Shui training programs, it's like a 60-hour program, and we spend hours and hours and hours on the 5 elements. So in the 5 minutes that's coming up, we're not going to cover the whole thing. I just want you to have a taste and just to know that this is out there, just to be aware that this idea is that there's a spectrum, there's a range of materials, of colors, that have their own qualities, and that we ourselves have a lot of different flavors. So that person, whoever made this artwork, this is just brilliant. The person in the middle there is this expression of 5 elements, unified and harmonized. And your environment will ideally have a balance of them as well. It doesn't have to be 20% each. Right? It can shift from room to room, but you want to have a little bit of each element in each room. So absolutely fine to prioritize some. We're all going to have some that resonate more than others, but we want to have the right ones in the right place. So there's a couple of little ideas I have to share with you. I mean, you look at nature and, you know, it's all there. You have the water, you have the wood growing out of the earth. The mountain is, you know, stone is both earth and metal. So we have this full range of expression. Just look at that beauty, and they all relate to each other. Now, you know, if you want to feel warm in bed and you want a warm relationship, blue bedrooms are probably not the best way to communicate that message. But if you just take a look at, that's what a very watery environment looks like, and same people changed it to that, it's a lot more fiery, a lot more robust, that warmth that you want to feel in bed and in your relationship. So just to get a sense of, that's how drastic even a flavor of that can be in your space, right? So the white and the red are opposites. White is cool. Really, it represents metal. Red is fire, represents, you know, right, heat. And they're opposites, but they work well together, right? So there's this trend nowadays for uniformity that I don't think works as well. So especially this pale look and this pale wood, which is dry and lacking in moisture, which reminds me of the desert. But when you look at the desert or these barren environments in the big picture, there's the blue sky, which is the source of moisture. And there's the promise. There's that balance of the earth with the water. The reason the sky is blue is because of the water, right? So we need to have that in the home as well, right? So that plant, that green expression of wood against that earthy wall really helps to balance it and not have it feel so dry. A little bit stormy for a bedroom, right? And very controlled in the setup. So I think there could be some volatile emotions that are being kept under wraps, right? So not quite, might be a great piece of work in the living room, I think, but not so much in the bedroom, might be tossing and turning. And in fact, actually, any water imagery, blue as a color for accents in a bedroom, this is a really powerful hint, that's fine. But even a calm lake, for me, I find it really impacts my sleep. And I just had a client I worked with recently in LA. It was our third session. And she had just had a calendar, which had a beautiful beach photo opposite the bed. And I was like, I wonder how you'd sleep without that. And first night, she texted first thing in the morning. She's like, we both slept like better than we've slept in ages. Like it completely made a difference not having the water in the bedroom. So something to consider. So there you have the water, but it's got context, right? It's got the green for the wood. It's got red for the flowers, the fire. White is the metal, earthy floor. There's a full 5-element balance in there. Even if you don't like the design, the overall balance of elements is there. So, and here as well, this is the Matchstick Cafe in Vancouver. Really perfect 5-element blend. So as much as I can't give you all of the finer details here, I'm just wanting to introduce this topic so you can be aware that, you know, if you're minimizing, if you're not showing all of these elements in your space, there's a quality inside you as well that you're not expressing in your environment that then gets a little bit more suppressed. It's another client of mine in LA who, you know, you don't have to go as colorful as he did. He doesn't like reds. And so the way we worked in fire was all the lighting and uplighting and triangular shapes and other things like that. So that's some of the more subtle approaches. So my question would be, right, how full is your range of color at home on a range of from dystopian wasteland to iridescent unicorn rainbow? Where are you on that scale? And you know, you don't have to go big and bold with these colors. So if your overall color scheme, if you want to keep it muted, not everybody wants that, that's fine. But you know, it can just be even, you know, one postcard in a golden frame that has some color, and that's the burst that it needs, right? So it's just bringing it in somewhere. Okay, we're about halfway through. I've been speaking to a few designers recently who said, you know, that when they're bringing up with their clients the need for color, they get a lot of blowback because people don't want it. And then whenever they do it, they love it, So there's this belief that you're somehow being too bold, and yet, you know, we're also being told we want people to express, and we value honesty, and we value communication, and, you know, you want an environment that expresses that full range. I think one of the reasons people don't get along as well now, other than, you know, social media and so on, you know, if you have 5 elements represented in your space, you're showing things that do get along, even if there can be conflict, right? Fire and water can have conflict, but as we saw, you know, the blue or the black with red, it also looks great together. And when you show contrasting things relating harmoniously, that also sets an example for what it can be like to have friends with different belief systems, people who do things differently than you, and you can still get along. So I think it's really, really important to show this, and also to show yourself that you can have a range of feelings and expressions and so on, and you don't need to hold them in. What element do you think you need more of in your home? And just going, you know, I know you didn't, I didn't go into all of the finer details, but is there one that you think you need more, perhaps? So we've got fire, water, a bit of earth, a little bit of metal, wood, a lot of fire. Right, lighting works as well. Just a splash of red. You know, my Feng Shui teacher, one of her power hints, she's like, every room needs a splash of red. And if you have it opposite from the door, it's like the sun on the horizon, right? And you sort of go towards the light, you see something sort of catches your attention as soon as you walk in. That can be a great way to work it. A bit of water too. Oh boy, right on, folks. Great. Okay, thanks for those answers. And moving right along, 7 kinds of rest. You know, a lot of us, when we think we need rest, what do we tend to do? We tend to rest our body. Right? We think that's what we need. I need more sleep. I need to chill out. I came across this article. Sorry, I'm just going to show this first before you answer. I came across this article on TED. I'm going to invite you to just, if you just Google 7 types of rest, Inc. magazine and so on, some other ones have picked this up. Highly recommend you explore this more fully than what I'm able to share today. But I wanted to bring this up because I think this is absolutely essential for having the right kind of rest. You might think you need one kind, but actually you need another. And that's why sleeping more isn't helping you. So how do you, right now, what's your go-to? How is it that you usually rest? Listen to music, read, meditate. Wow, quite a few meditators here, eh? Stare outside. Okay, staring outside. I got some great intel here for you. So I synchronistically somehow met, when I was traveling through Germany, a doctor who was, you know, gave me some interesting coaching. This guy's like really high end, like written lots of books and so on. And he said that those, you know, the very expensive Swiss sanatoriums and spas that people go to recover from stresses and so on, their secret, you heard it here first, folks. Their secret is throughout the day, several times a bell will ring and you have to go sit down and do nothing. That's what these people are paying thousands and thousands of dollars for. Okay, so you have my invitation, not necessarily when you're on the clock, right? But to sit and do nothing, stare out the window, do nothing. And this guy told me, do it for 15 minutes. Try 15, 20 minutes looking out the window or sitting and not looking at a book. You're not looking at anything. Kind of interesting, right? So that's one that actually ties over into several of the kinds of rest. So for physical rest, we often think that the physical rest should be taking a nap or something like that, but it might need to be active. So there's the passive rest, but there's also stretching. Exercising for some people is the rest that they need because it's a change from sitting. Emotional rest has to do with not always people pleasing. So in your job, if you're having to say yes a lot and you're having to deal with other people's needs, taking a break from that, which might be actually having social rest, connecting with a friend who doesn't need anything, and having face-to-face time, even if it's on a screen right now until Dr. Bonbon lets us get together in person. That's fine, right? The screen talk, this is great. This is a kind of social thing. If you can talk with your friends one-on-one, that's great. Mental rest, stopping the ideas, stopping the flow of ideas, which ties in with creative rest a bit. Creative rest, I'm jumping sensory for a second. Creative rest means you're stopping the output. So if you're writing a lot of emails, producing things, you're busy producing, stopping the producing and letting something come in, or turning off your senses again. Sensory has to do with the fact that we have so much sensory overload right now. And spiritual rest is really about what exists beyond your four walls. Like what's stepping a little bit outside the parameters of your life. So you're not just hustle, hustle, hustle. You're connected all the time, sensory overload, busy serving other people. You know, you can take a rest at your desk, but ideally you'll step away. And this was a client of mine who set this up behind her home workstation. And she said, you know, sometimes I need to brainstorm or just think, take a rest. And I don't want to do it at my office chair, and I don't want to do it at my desk. So she's like, she made herself a thinking chair. And she didn't make the chair, she bought it, but she made that little thinking area, which is pretty awesome. Putting your feet up. Reading can be rest if it's a different kind of information, right? So it can still be mental rest because you're outside of your usual thought patterns, right? And talking with a friend, but you're having a coffee, you're doing something, maybe sitting in a different part of the room as you're having your social engagement with somebody who's really supportive to you, okay? So for you today, what do you think? I put two kinds of physical there. What do you think is the kind of rest that you most need today? And again, I'll invite you to read up a little bit more to find out the finer details of these. But sensory coming up. Be sure to scroll down and hit submit at the bottom. Emotional, lots for sensory, huh? Okay. Lots and lots of sensory is the big one. And mental. Cool. Emotional. I mean, you know, we're all if you're dealing with customers, you're dealing with other people's needs, right? And it is the job, and we do like serving people, but we also need a break from that particular expression. It's useful to know, isn't it? So I really, again, I suggest just Google 7 kinds of rest. Really, really supportive. So here's the next question. What do you have in your home to support your needed kind of rest? Because if your environment doesn't have it, it's going to be harder for you to do it. And this is why I'm covering this topic, because if your home makes that easier, just like what James Clear was saying, your home being your environment being the guiding hand, the invisible guiding hand for your behavior. What do you have in your home that supports it? Ooh, a cave. I'd love to have a cave. Sounds awesome. Quietness is great. Different areas to escape, you know what? And you might need a different one in different days. That's awesome. Backyard, comfy chair, quiet room. Wonderful. Okay. Lack of clutter. You know what? If you have a lot of stuff, if you have one place, right? Reality happens, we get clutter. If you have one place without clutter, that's really, really helpful. So awesome, folks, thanks. So just to review what we've talked about, right? Keeping in mind that health has that full spectrum from inner to outer, and it's really a holistic thing. One affects the other. Nature, either in physical form or imagery, can really support your innate well-being. And again, I'm not saying, you know, don't see a therapist, don't see a doctor and so on for this, right? But this is something that really helps in your home. Art as well. Doesn't have to be just nature, but art that communicates the right quality of energy, something that really feels supportive and inspiring. If you choose words, choose them really carefully, or choose inspiring quotes. 5 elements. Again, something to look into, and that could be something that I do for a future presentation to look a little bit more at. And the 7 kinds of rest. I think I just came across the 7 kinds of rest a couple of days ago, and I've been working with my clients as well as with myself with this, and it's phenomenally supportive. So before we go into questions, I would like to ask, you know, is there a Feng Shui related topic that would interest you for a future presentation? If there's anything that comes to mind, could be something I touched on today or something that you've heard about with Feng Shui or anything along those lines. I'm really good at coming up with lots of different topics and picking up off of people's ideas and thoughts and so on. So what would support you personally and also professionally, if there's something that would really inspire you? Let's talk more about art. Love it. Okay. Relationships and communication. I've got some good ones there. Here's one little hint for relationships and communication. How much do you see your cables? Communication lines between your devices and your things. There's a little thing about putting your sort of communication dynamics being front and center. Room layout, directional alignment, space planning. Great. More about 5 elements, storage. Fantastic. I'm going to be able to have access to all of these answers afterwards, so we'll do some brainstorming and look at what it is that we can do in the future. Architecture of space and adjacencies. Color, thanks. 5 elements, colors, how they make us feel. Great. Yeah, water, water without fountain. Yeah, great idea. Awesome. Okie dokie. So I'm going to keep this page active in case you're still typing, but I am going to, or hopefully it stays active. I'm going to shut things down just so that we can have a little conversation if y'all have some questions. So, all right, folks, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat.
I have one that was sent to me, Mark, maybe to kick it off here.
Yeah.
It's an interesting question. Would your own personal art or art from your kids be considered a positive impact?
Fabulous. Depends if you love your kids. Just kidding. Yes, it should be. Now, for kids' arts, I have a suggestion. So I was visiting a friend of mine in Paris, and her son was really not happy that I was there because I was taking attention away from him. And not so coincidentally, his art was floor to ceiling, like almost coming up above the ceiling on his wall. And I was like, wow, so he really gets to control the space. And she said, oh, I was trying to encourage him. And I was like, oh, you encouraged him, all right. So my suggestion for kids' art is you set a limit. Like it's either, and it doesn't have to just be fridge. I think one of the best things you can do, if you have, depending how many kids you have, if you have a frame, like get those IKEA box frames that are really easy, and kids' art goes in the frame and they're allowed to change it up to once a week or every 2 weeks or whatever you decide. And you're actually really showcasing them and showing that what they do is valuable, but within limits, not like every single thing you do goes up on the wall, which is like everything that you come out with is great. Not so sure, right? It teaches limits and it teaches working towards something and working towards goals. So I think it's fantastic. And then it really showcases their work and actually makes them feel more important, but within reason. I think it's a great way to work. I had one client who took this to another level and put a photo light table, installed it on the wall, and then the kids' art was actually illuminated with the light from the light table. And then somebody else did one where they had a roll of paper that would go through the light table, and then they would, create something really spontaneous, and then it would just be this sort of, ongoing artistic expression that was framed, but it was, it was contained. So creating those limits is really useful. But I think it's wonderful to have it. I think it helps you connect with, who are you and what are you doing, and the bigger picture of your life and your family relationships. Who do you work for, in a sense, right? You're working to support your family. So defining Feng Shui, thanks. It is a tough one in a way, because there's so, when we say Feng Shui means wind and water, it's like, yeah, so what? What does that mean? Well, air and water are the 2 forms of energy in the physical world that we need in order to survive, right? We can't live without air, can't live without water. But these are 2 forms of physical energy, and it's symbolic of how energy itself moves throughout physical space. So what do we need really in order to survive well? So what is more nourishing? How does the environment nourish us? The way I might refer to Feng Shui is the OS of nature. So it's kind of the algorithm or the operating system of the natural world. And because we are biological beings living in non-biological physical spaces, how can we bring in some of that programming into the physical environment that we're in it's then physiologically and inner as well, we're going to be able to recognize and feel that we're heard and we're respected and we've got the right feedback loop happening. Specific colors for most used family space, so the kitchen. I wouldn't say specific per se, because it always depends. And this is the thing that's challenging is, Feng Shui has a lot of quick fix things, and there's also a lot of complexity in terms of where it's going to be in each case. So I would say for kitchen, though, you want to have some reds because it's that fire element, right? The stove is the heart of the kitchen, even though, of course, we love to have our refrigerator, right? So, but, having that fire element, so having some splashes of red is really great. And again, they harmoniously work with metal, right? The stove, so the fire and the metal working together. So I wouldn't say anything specific. I would say, though, that blue, if you think about it, name a blue fruit or blue food. There's blueberries and that's it. That's the only blue food in nature. So blue is not necessarily the most supportive one when it comes to food. These are really great questions. I agree. Thanks, Danny. Easy to understand book and or online resource. Well, I would be derelict in my self-promotion duties if I didn't give you my website. So senseofspace.com and my Instagram, I'm posting just about every day and not so Insta with some of the text. So they do get a little bit long. So there's lots of insight for you there.
Mark, could I add to that, actually, just to reiterate them? Mark is a regular here at Chase, and we will be doing another presentation with Mark in March, and you will continually see him pop up at least once a quarter. So you'll be invited to these ones, and our presentations that we do here, Mark custom makes them for us. So as you give feedback, you'll find that the presentations that he comes up with are a direct result of that.
Right. Great, thanks. And yeah, and also, I'm available for consultations because that's actually most of my work is consulting, not in the teaching, right? And it is really specific. And the way that I work, again, Feng Shui, you get it from books or you get it from little bite-sized stuff on the internet, and it can be a bit band-aidy because it can be a bit one size fits all. But I really work individually so that not everybody's home looks like a Rubik's Cube or looks exactly the same as everybody else's. Blue potatoes, yes, those are great. But are they really blue or are they a bit more purple? There's a lot of there's more purple food for sure, but I'm wondering. But yeah, I know I'm good old delicious, tasty carbs. Thanks for the reminder of the blue potatoes, though. I do. Now I'm going to go buy some. Any colors that make you feel more anxious than others? It's surprising, but it depends on context, because it's usually the too much of anything that will do it. If you live in like a blue, blue curtains, blue walls, blue bedding, you can get emotionally like a lot more anxious and depressed. Right, if it's too blue. And again, I'm not saying no blue. I'm saying, balance. Too much white. If it's all white, you're going to get it's so metal and it's so cutting that if you're just living in a completely white environment, you can get overly analytical and be, too mentally focused. Too much earth energy as well. Earth is so fertile. Anything can grow there. So if you don't have the other elements balancing it, again, you can spin out with all the possibilities. So it's in all kinds of cases, too much red, too much anger, right? It's all about balance. I used to live in Japan, and my Japanese homestay mother used to say in her delightful accent, balance is importante, right? And that's kind of when I teach in Japan, that's kind of my catchphrase in every presentation. Because people want to go like, oh, I need red. And then it's like, everything's going to become like, the living room's on fire. And that's not the way to go. You really want to keep it balanced. You can see if you, I don't know if I'm up on the screen right now, you can see my hand because of everything around my hand that's not my hand. And so, something that's red will stand out if it's not everything that's fully red around it. And it doesn't mean not to have a feature wall. Absolutely do that. But what was so great about that piece where they had, the bookcase with the modern art was for all of the dark that was there, they had a lot of light stuff that was complementing it. So it was a beautiful yin and yang balance. So it's a great question. But again, too much of anything in a certain place. It's location, 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 as well as volume. So thanks for that question, Trish. That was really great. Let's see, Diana, from the workplace tends to be bland. Real life plants aren't allowed. Ew. Okay. Ask not to exhibit too much personal stuff. I would invite everybody to look at Scientific American reports, several reports on how when people have control and can design their own workspaces, they are more productive. So they do actually a better job. When it comes to personal expressions, I sometimes agree. I sometimes think, you know, okay, like if somebody has a beach image, are you thinking it's like, I don't want to work, I'd rather be at the beach? That's not really supportive, actually, right? You want to have something that still connects and you're still connected to your work, but it's also inspiring. So it is really important. I think family pictures can be great, again, if there's not like heaps of conflict. But what do I recommend? How about your screensaver? Your screensaver on your phone, your screensaver on your desktop image in the background. All of those things can be some personal expressions, I think. So I think it's really important to find a way to do something. Okay, are there blue pumpkins? Oh my, this is awesome. I haven't eaten one though, but I'm gonna have to check that out. Great, Gail, thank you, so glad. And any other questions? I know some of you are gonna need to leave probably because it's on the hour, but if you can, I'm happy to stick around for some more questions as well, if there are any. So somebody did ask me a little bit about water. So there was just a private message and I'll just bring it up. The thing with water, it's great, right? We need water. Our body is what % water? It's huge. In a bedroom, it can be unsettling. And when you go into the land of dreams and boundaries, the boundary between reality and imagined or dream state is blurred. Water itself doesn't have a boundary, right? It's only the container that holds it in. And so it can be harder to pull yourself back into where it is that you are. And also because water deepens, what starts to happen, it represents emotions. And so your emotions can get really quite deep, which can be fine if you have solid footing in the environment as well that contains that. So generally what I suggest for bedrooms is not to have, you know, oceans and lakes and waterfalls and all of that sort of stuff. Expressions of water can be literally, you know, it could be your bluish cup or a vase or something like that. Absolutely fine, not a problem. Blue sky in the artwork, it still represents water, but it's not in a watery form. So you are reading it differently. So, all right, another one, okay. Any other questions?
Well, I think we will wrap it up. Mark, thank you so much for your presentation. We'll be sending out our invitation in the next 2 weeks for the next presentation. Mark will be back in March. We'll be taking the feedback here. I've taken some notes to build the next presentation, and we will send an invite out to everybody that's been on this call. Thank you so much for coming. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Mark. Fantastic.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Mark.
Bye, thanks.